with streaming, I felt like because the model is different, they can take a lot bolder risks when it comes to storytelling. And they were doing that with House of Cards, they were doing that with Orange is the New Black. And I just knew that eventually they were going to get into animation. And so I was really excited about the opportunities of telling bolder, more challenging stories in this medium that I love so much. So that's why I left. I don't know why you left.
You! I mean, you inspired me. You compelled me in Stanley. I think
coerced.
I mean, I think so much of it was an opportunity to learn and grow at a faster pace. Setting out, getting away from the mothership, taking everything I learned from Pixar, but trying to apply it where I had more responsibility was exciting opportunity for us. Yeah. And I think like what you were talking about with that bold time, I think, we've been jumping around on a couple sequels, and it was exciting to be like, let's try to make our own original stories.
How did that conversation go down? Do you remember?
I tapped him up when I said
yeah. And what was your reaction?
I don't even remember.
I feel like it was multiple conversations over a long period of time. I think.
Yeah, I was like, hey, I got this crazy idea. He's like, what? He's like, don't bother me. I'm like busy, finishing this show. I was like, okay.
A lot of our friendship was I would commute into San Francisco from Pixar in Emeryville, and Alex would be waiting for the Emery Go-Round shuttle in front of Pixar.
So this is, I sold my car because I parked in Steve Jobs' parking spots. I know. And obviously, it was the day that he announced the acquisition of Disney or Pixar by Disney, and he usually never shows up. During orientation, the one rule they said is just don't park in Steve Jobs' spot. But they didn't show us where it was, and so usually it's first come first serve. So I had just started at the company. I was there for like 6 months, and I had this like kind of roadster. I was like just a douchebag, and I had just cleaned my car that day, and I got to work a little late, and there was no parking spots available, and I saw one in the back of my rearview mirror in the corner. It was really far away, so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna park there. And I parked in backwards, and it was like a convertible, so my rear window was really, the visibility was very low. Parked, got out, went to work. That day, Steve Jobs calls a town hall meeting. They announced the acquisition of Pixar by Disney. Then at lunch, we're all talking about the acquisition, and somebody goes, hey, did you guys hear some idiot parked in Steve Jobs? I'm like, what idiot did that? As I'm going home to my car, I'm getting closer and closer, and I see my parking spot is different than everybody else's. There's like a yellow rectangle that says reserved. I'm like, oh my God, that's me. So I quickly get in my car, I drive home, and I'm like tossing and turning the light. I'm like, I'm totally fired. So I don't drive my car the next day. And I have not registered my car because I'm still relatively a new employee. So I go in, I check my office, email no firing, no call that says I'm fired, no pink slip. So I'm like, okay, I guess I got away with it. Then the next day, I'm still feeling really bad. So I tell my boss, I'm like, hey, Mark, that guy parked in Steve Jobs' parking spot? That was me. Like, should I apologize to him? He's like, are you crazy? Don't tell anybody. So I kept that secret till today.
It's being recorded.
It's okay, I don't work at Pixar anymore. And I was so scared to lose my job that I sold my car that weekend. And I just took the bus. The BART and the bus in, and that's why Tim would pick me up sometimes.
To have long conversations on the bridge about our future and aspirations and things, and he just, that's like our friendship. And
so
I would
if
say
we didn't park in Steve Jobs' parking spot, we would not be here.
What an incredible war! We just been rattled on that story. That was wild. I also want to talk to you about cuckoo a little bit more. So the name cuckoo is derived from the Chinese word ku, meaning cry, reflecting the studio's goal of producing stories that make people cry tears of laughter and tears of pathos. I'm like crying now. Why am I crying already? What stories do you believe are important for Cuckoo to tell? And I just wanted to say, during the presentation, I could see your eyes getting a little bit watery when you were talking about your family story. It's brave. It's scary to tell stories like that. Is that what you all are trying to achieve?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think we want to tell stories that may not be told by the bigger studios. I mean, we're an independent company. I mean, obviously we're working with Netflix, which is a huge studio, but our ethos as a company, as a studio, and as filmmakers is really, we're very, independent, and we're really inspired by the Bay Area filmmakers. There's a lot of independent filmmakers up there. I mean, George Lucas, believe it or not, was an independent filmmaker. He just got really rich with Star Wars. Francis Ford Coppola also. I mean, there's such a legacy of independent filmmakers in the Bay Area. We want to continue that legacy. Yeah.
We're in the Saul Zaentz Media Center. There's that rich tradition.
Yeah.
But I think what it is that it's bold, it's grounded, and I think I lost my train of thought for a second.
No, I mean, for the name of the studio is really reminiscent, or it really does capture what the emotions that I want to experience when I go watch a movie, right? So the movies I love, when I go and I'm laughing so hard I'm crying, and then I'm feeling something so deeply that I'm crying. And so those are the two sort of poles and then of emotions that I want to capture in a film and in a story, and then also everything else in between. So that's why our film has this really heartwarming story about a kid trying to keep her family together, and then also laser farts.
I mean, I think to pick back up on my thread, the tears of laughter, tears of pathos, I think Alex was really trying to evoke the classic Greek drama masks, right, of tragedy and comedy. And I think hopefully we talked a lot about the kind of heart of the story, but we hope it's also really funny and entertaining and adventurous as well.
Definitely, so many genres covered. I also want to talk to you about this. In your dream centers, run a mixed family. I'm half Chinese. Any half Asians out there?
Yeah.
Asians. So obviously, we have a second or third generation Asian American family here. Why was that decision made, and why a biracial family?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I mean, I'm not biracial, but me and Stanley Moore, who is our co-founder, he helped me create this story. He's white American. And so we felt like it would be a good representation of both of our points of view. Eric Benson, who ended up being my co-director, also is white American. And so I think it just made sense that both of our cultural backgrounds, our specific sort of cultural heritage, was represented in characters in this film. So yeah, I think that was why we chose to make these characters mixed race. I haven't seen a lot of mixed race characters in film, especially in animated film. I grew up half my life in Hong Kong. There's a lot of mixed race people there because of the British influence. A lot of my friends were mixed race. And I always just thought that they had such an interesting, life and perspective on life, on the world, because they had the benefit of two different cultures. And also we have mom and dad having obviously marital and relational problems. And I thought it might really help actually if the cultural backgrounds and points of view that they both brought to the relationship was coming from a different place, and it could help sort of create some friction and tension there.
Very cool. Tim, were you part of the decision-making process at all, or were you just like, cool, let's do it?
I think we like to joke that, Alex likes to say it took 9 years in total from like conception to it being released. Mm-hmm. So it was like a 9 year, it takes 9 months to make a baby, and it took 9 years to make this film baby. And I think we think of the film as like their film baby.
Our film baby.
Okay, very cool. And Netflix Animation has incredible API-centric content. I got a long list here, so give me some little cheers here. Titles like The Monkey King, Ultraman Rising, Gentry Chow versus the Underworld, little tiny one, you may have heard of it, K-pop Demon Hunters. Yes. Yeah, I know, maybe you've heard of it. But how does it feel to see these API stories being told?
Oh, I mean, it's the best. I was so fortunate that I spent half my life in Hong Kong, where I was part of the ethnic majority, and I can't tell you that there's something so powerful about not being the minority, not being the other, and so I feel like these stories are helping people who are in those circumstances feel less othered and feeling like they're more part of the mainstream. And so I think it's really I love it. I think it's super important.
Tim, why do you think it's important?
I mean, I think we're excited to redefine what is default. My niece and nephews are also mixed race, and that wasn't like a driving decision point to all of this, but I'm just so excited that they'll have this. They can be proud that their uncle made it and maybe see themselves in those characters.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was really a deliberate choice for us to not make their ethnic identity or their cultural heritage be their main defining characteristic in this film. I think there's a place for that, but I wanted to expand the types of stories that were being told that featured API characters. And so, a lot of times, especially, just like 4 or 5 years ago, anytime you saw an Asian American character, an Asian character, they were the token Asian character. It was about them being othered or being the minority and wrestling with that. And I think there's a place for that because it resonates with a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also very othering, and I wanted, whenever you see a white character, they're not wrestling with their identity, And so I thought, well, why can't we have like an Asian character that's not wrestling with their, their cultural identity? It's just more universal. Like they're dealing with a situation where their family is like sort of falling apart, and that's across cultures. Everybody experiences that, and so that sort of normalization of minority characters or API characters was very deliberate on that.
Alex, this is off the script, to be honest, but we had a conversation earlier, and I believe you told me Squid Games and K-pop Demon Hunters are Netflix's like 2 most popular titles.
Yeah.
And I just think that's wild. Can we get a clap for that? I was like, that's just awesome. And so I wanted to ask both of you, how have you seen things evolve during your career when it comes to API stories, and how does it feel to be at this point?
It's changed a lot. I've been in the industry for 20 years now. When I was at Pixar, you just didn't see people of our, ethnic background in leadership positions, and that has an effect on you, there's also some sort of minor, subtle, unconscious sort of racism a lot. Like when I worked on Cars 2, and they, John Lasseter gave me the wasabi scene because he was like, oh, if he's Asian, he'll know how to do that. And I was like, well, I'm not Japanese, but okay, whatever, I'll do it. So it's stuff like that. It's not malicious in intent, but it's just sort of like just an unawareness, And now I think with all the things that have happened with DEI, and Black Lives Matters and Asian hate, it's really brought that to the forefront of culture, and so people are more aware, which is I think great. Awareness is really helpful. I think it's there's still a long way to go. Simu's in this movie, and he talks to me about how even he's incredibly successful, right? But even for him, it's hard to the number of roles that are available to him are so limited because just by the nature of the stories that they're telling in Hollywood, like a World War II story. Like how many, there just aren't characters that have Chinese descent that could play, that he could play in stories like that. And so I think the change that needs to happen is that the people who are telling the stories need to come from, backgrounds that we have so that we can start telling stories, like the stories that we care about that are important to us so that we can give these opportunities to people in our community.
Yeah, I think I was going to say something about Simu as well, but you beat me to it. I think to double down on the folks behind the camera and behind the scenes, those opportunities, especially like not my parents not being sure that I could work in this industry and have a career. I think step one was them visiting Pixar when I started there and being like, okay, this is a stable company. And then I think step two, when I left, that was very scary for them. But I think to get to this point where our projects were starting to come out, that was a huge change. And even to have like Dan Lin at the head of Netflix, like those are really exciting. I think we stand on those who came before us. We get that push and keep trying to make sure both in front of and behind the camera.
Yeah, but I think having Squid Games and K-pop being so successful is so important because ultimately the studios are corporations, right? They care about the numbers, they care about the bottom line. And so they're, they might do some stuff out of, the goodness of their hearts, but it's going to be really limited. At the end of the day, what they really care about is the bottom line. Mm-hmm. And so showing that you're not doing our community you're not doing us a favor by greenlighting our shows. It's really good business for you. And the proof is in the pudding, right? Now the two most viewed pieces of, the most viewed show, the most viewed film are, Asian or have Asian characters that are Asian originated. So yeah, I think it's fantastic.
I think that speaks to how international of an audience, not just Netflix, but all of the entertainment industry is getting to, and how that is just really exciting.
Well, we've seen progress, right? And we're really excited about that. And Hollywood is making space for API, which is incredible to see. But you have Cuckoo Studios, Chinese takeout films. How do we continue to help API stories be seen and heard?
Well, you got to support the API stories that are out there now.
Support.
Because
Hold up your little stuffers, everybody. Post about the movie. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's what it comes down to. It's a business, right? And so if the studios see these movies are generating views, they're generating income, and it's beating out other, the stories that are more sort of default mainstream, they're going to pay attention, and that's really, it's got to start there. I think you have to win them over on their terms, which is, in the corporate metrics that they care about.
Seems like I agree. I concur. Okay, also worth noting that In Your Dreams had a lot of anime influences. Anybody see that in there? So we chatted about this. We were on a call and I was like, okay, I think I saw a little Pokemon. I think I saw a little Sailor Moon, and I was like, tell me, am I crazy?
No, you're not crazy. The Pokemon cards are actually not real Pokemon cards because we don't have a license for that. But they're obviously modeled after Pokemon cards. So again, I grew up half my life in Hong Kong, and I was exposed to a lot of anime growing up, and I loved it. I was a big fan of Dragon Ball Z. I was also a big fan of Sailor Moon. I didn't tell anybody at the time. I just thought it was so cool. So Stevie's transformation is totally influenced by Sailor Moon. So those are some of my favorite parts of the movie, because they feel so specific to my, life and my point of view and my, upbringing. And I, because I love animation so much, I love all the wide spectrum that animation offers. I'm so glad that I was able to do, really sort of, again, nuanced, subtle performances with the human characters and then push it all the way to 2D like anime. So, yeah, that's sort of where it comes from.
Studio Ghibli too, right?
I think one layer deeper down is, of course, our love, Stanley, too, of Studio Ghibli.
Yeah.
And,
the Sandlings are sort of, straight, an homage to the sprites in Spirited Away and Totoro. So, yeah, there's just all these sorts of Asian anime specific influences that have seeped their way into the film.
Very cool. Okay, you might have kind of answered this already during the presentation, but I was going to ask, what was the hardest part of making In Your Dreams? I heard you talk about Nightmara a lot, but I don't know what pops to your head first when you're like, this was a lot.
I mean, technically, she was definitely the most challenging, but I think technical challenges have technical solutions. It was really the ending of the film that was really challenging.
Oh, okay.
I think, obviously this movie is about a family that sort of has an uncertain future. And we tried a lot of different versions of the ending. So originally we had the parents separate. They ended up getting divorced. But every time we showed it, it was so disappointing for people, and it didn't really leave any room for optimism or hope. And that's not what I wanted to leave the audience with. That's not the feeling or the emotion that I wanted to leave the audience with. But then when we kept them together, people were like, "What? I don't buy that. That's so dishonest," And of course, you want to be honest and truthful in your work. And so, but you're like, okay, well, they're not going to get together. They're not getting divorced. What's the solution? There's no in between. But then this is, getting really personal and probably TMI. But so, the story was inspired by, when my mom left when I was young. She ended up coming back. And then in college, she left again. When my brother went off to college, they were sort of empty nesters. And my mom always wanted to be an actress. And she moved to LA. My dad was, they were living in Hong Kong at the time. She moved to LA, lived here by herself for 3 years and tried to make it. And she was, at that point already in her 50s. And it was, hard. It's already hard for women that age to make it in Hollywood. And if you don't have any sort of history or background, it's near impossible. So she ended up going back to Hong Kong and getting back together with my dad. And then everything seemed fine. And then when I was making this movie in 2020, October, 8 months into production, 10 months into production, the pandemic was, sort of 6 months in. We were 6 months into the pandemic. My dad was home a lot because he was working remotely. And I think, he just got on my mom's nerves. So she's like, "I'm divorcing your father." And so I had to go back to Hong Kong and sort of mediate the situation for them. And I ended up, getting stuck there because they closed the border. So I made half of this movie remotely from Hong Kong, working California hours from midnight to 10 a.m. every day, and then prepping the day's work for the next day, and sleeping from like 3 o'clock to like 10 p.m. every day for 18 months. So it was gnarly. But the reason I tell the story is because my parents, they basically like been in and out of each other's lives relationally for my whole life. And when I thought about that, I was like, you know what, it actually doesn't really matter what officially the label of my parents, whether or not they're together or apart. Like, we are always going to be a family. Definitely a very imperfect family. But my mom's always going to be my mom, my dad's always going to be my dad. We're always going to love each other. They're always going to love each other in their own weird, strange way. And so that to me was like, oh, that's actually what this movie is about. That it doesn't matter what the labels are. Like, you're always going to be a family. And so what we tried to do with the ending is, when mom and dad are, coming out with that last box, it says fragile on there, and that's sort of a metaphor for their relationship. And then when they're trying to, put the final box into the truck, you can tell they're not really on the same page. She's going left, he's going right. And then, when they drive off into the sunset, into the horizon, he's like, okay, they finally figured it out, right? And then the tailgate opens and all the boxes fall out. And it's just like life just never can, stand still. Things are always changing. Life is always messy. But then they go and they pick up the mess together. And that's kind of what I feel life is like. And that's what my family has been like. And that's kind of what I wanted to capture with this film. So I'm really proud of the ending. I think it was really hard to find it, but we ended up finding it, and I think we're really proud of it.
Wait, so the hardest part was the family stuff, not being nocturnal for 8 years.
That's an incredible behind the scenes story. That's super cool. Did you have any moment that you were like, this is really hard?
I mean, I think truly we come from a pedigree of story is king, and I think solving these story problems is the most important and the most difficult. From where I sit, definitely a huge challenge was producing this film during a lot of peak COVID. That and as an independent studio, where you maybe have less infrastructure already ready to go, but I think we were just so lucky to have fantastic crew from around the world, and just like a great collaborative spirit.
Awesome. And then what was the easiest part? What just like came together so well? Was it casting or character designs, or what pops into your head for that one?
The easiest was, some of the needle drops were really obvious. We were like, oh, we've got to have the Eurythmics' Sweet Dreams. We wanted Enter Sandman, but we couldn't afford it for the longest time. And then we were so lucky that Scott Stuber saw a screening before he left. He's like, you gotta have Enter Sandman. We're like, we know, but it's really expensive. He's like, oh, I'll take care of it. And so he got us the money. So I think a lot of the song choices were relatively straightforward. And it was challenging because there's so many songs that are about dreams, so that, it's kind of like an embarrassment of riches, and there's too many options, so how do you choose? So we tried to choose songs that were really iconic, but not too obvious. Like for the longest time we had the Hall & Oates, You Make My Dreams Come True. That opened the movie, and we loved that, but it was like, it's kind of too obvious. And so there were a lot of songs like that where we were like, okay, let's take the, let's dig one layer deeper. Stevie is named after Stevie Nicks, and so the Fleetwood Mac song Dreams was like in there, and we were like, but there was that meme, do you remember that guy who's like holding on to the back of the trucks?
Yes.
So that happened around the time we were making this movie. I was like, oh, people are just gonna think of that meme, so we can't use that song. But yeah, I think the music was pretty easy.
Yeah, I think we were always so inspired by the work of the animation team too. That the reference videos that you showed were always so entertaining, and the team at Imageworks was so great.
Right. Such a major milestone, though. Looking back, what do you think has been the biggest lesson that you've learned?
That life is not perfect and movies aren't perfect. I think I think really the biggest thing is animation is so collaborative as a medium. film is incredibly collaborative, but animation, they say it takes a village, right? With animation, it takes a village of villages. And I think the film is so much better than I could have dreamed or imagined because of the collaboration with, people like Tim, with my co-director Eric, with Stanley, with my heads of story, my production designer. They elevated the film so much in a way that I couldn't even dream to that it could happen, because I just don't have the level of expertise that they do. So I think really leaning on your team and people that you trust and you really admire and respect is so key to making something successful. So yeah, that was probably the biggest.
Yeah, I mean, I'll double down on what Alex is saying and just kind of, I'm always taken by the end credits, and to see something like 1,000 names that ultimately cross the screen. They've touched the film in tiny bits, maybe at the very end in post-production, or every single day, like Alex. It's maybe not like a lesson so much as just like an eternal takeaway I'll have, is that team.
I have one more.
Okay.
This one's probably a little juicier. So I think it's also really important to be honest and tell the truth in your work. In the film, when Stevie decides to stay in the dream world, that was a really controversial character choice. And there was a lot of pushback from the studio, even internally, because they felt like that is such a bad decision for a character to make, and it's almost like borderline like suicide. It's like giving up on life. And so it was really hard for a lot of people to stomach. But I just felt like I've been there. I've been in those moments where life is so hard you just don't want to wake up. And I fought for that really hard. And I had to tell the team, and you remember these debates that we had, I basically said, normally I don't like pulling the director trump card. I usually like to lead by consensus, and I feel like if people aren't agreeing that something's missing, there's probably a better idea out there. But with this, it was just, there was no sort of emergent idea that was coming. And so I kind of just told everybody, look, I gotta have to make this call because it's what my intuition is telling me, and this is my truth. And so if it's wrong, it's on me, and if it's right, then great. Then the movie's gonna be better for it. So I think you have to be honest, and just be truthful and honor the stories and the character choices that you really believe in.
I was just going to say, but not for lack of due diligence, and it was not,
Yeah, we labored over it and fought over it for like months, and but ultimately I just had to make the call. I stand by it. I think it was the right call.
Wow, I'm taking notes from the lessons that you all have learned. My next question was, we have a ton of Asian creatives in this room right now. Do you have any advice for them? Like any words of inspiration? How can they get their stories told?
You gotta tell the truth and be honest, I think, and don't be afraid to tell your story. I also think, you have to think about the business side of it. Like you're selling a product, to a company, and that product is then being, essentially sold to an audience. And so you have to convince people that that your product is worth buying. And the way we did that was, we were lucky that we came from Pixar, and that opened a lot of doors for us, but it didn't give us a green light. People were like, okay, we want to hear what you have to, the stories that you have to pitch us, but we're definitely not going to give you a green light just because you're from Pixar. And so the onus was on us to prove to them that we had the chops and the talent and the experience to take on something like this. But it's kind of a catch-22. Like, how do you prove to somebody that you can direct if you haven't been given the chance to direct? And it's not their responsibility to give you that opportunity. So I put it on us I was like, okay, how can I show people that we can actually, that we're really adept at our craft and they're really great storytellers without actually spending $100 million on a movie? And what we did is we beatboarded the entire story. And it took us like 6 to 8 months to do it. We leaned into our strengths. I came from story, so I could, storyboard really well and quickly. Stanley also did. So we beatboarded the entire movie, and we almost put together like a 2-man show. Where we went in, it was kind of like a presentation I did,
Yeah.
where like you would just go through all these storyboards and concept art.
They would practice so much.
Yeah, and we rehearsed like it was a performance, and then we would go in it and we'd put the show on, and inevitably people would be laughing and they'd be crying at the end of it, and it felt to them like they had just watched a movie without actually watching a movie, and that gave them the confidence in us as filmmakers. And so I think the advice is you gotta prove to people that you can do it. You gotta show, not tell, because anybody can say I'm a good director, trust me. They're not gonna believe you. You have to show that. And so that onus is on you. And so you have to do whatever it takes to prove that.
I mean, that's amazing advice, and I echo it completely. And I'll maybe drill down to maybe a more rudimentary version of that too, which is I always try to talk to people about finishing things. And Ira Glass, who hosts This American Life, he has this famous speech, and he always talks about when you start out, your taste exceeds your skill. You grew up watching so many things, you studied so many things, and then what you can actually execute doesn't reach it. And it can be very discouraging, and when you're doing your own projects, you say it's not done yet. And you can say it's not done yet for forever. And it's really pushing yourself to, when I was younger and at Pixar, I had friends, and outside of work, we would do speed filmmaking competitions, make music videos and these shorts. And I think a lot of what Alex saw in me and trusted me to help him was not just my time at Pixar, was these side indie little projects where I put a team together of 5 people with no money and just finished something, right? And without finishing something, looking at it when it's done in the naked light of day and seeing everything that you wish you could have done better, that you actually crystallize those learnings, I feel. Because if you delay it, then you can kind of excuse yourself. You can write it off. And so that's maybe what I would add.
Great. My last question is there anything you want to say to this crowd? You all have been amazing. Such a wonderful audience. So attentive. Love the presentation. They're so supportive of you. Anything you want to say to them?
I mean, we love you guys. Yeah, thanks for coming out. I know it's late on a Thursday night. So yeah, I'm so glad that you guys got to see it on the big screen. And yeah, please, if you like the film, share it to your friends. We want to get those views up as much as possible. So I know you've seen it already once, but maybe go home and watch it again in 3 hours. And I just learned this, but the double thumbs up rate button, like that really affects the algorithm, and it, triggers it to send it and recommend it to other people and other accounts. So if you guys like the movie, please give it a double thumbs up. But yeah, more than anything, I'm just so grateful that you guys came, and I hope you like the movie. I mean, I always think about movie making as it's like cooking, like when you cook and you invite friends over, it's a way of tangibly showing people that you love them, right, without being creepy. It's like you put all your heart and your energy and your passion into something, and then you give it to them as a tangible thing, and then they can eat it and it nourishes them. And it's the same way I think about movies. Like movies to me are just a way for me. It's like a vehicle for me to love audiences, and it's something that they can receive into their life and hopefully enriches their lives and brings them emotion and joy. And so, yeah, thanks for letting me love you.
This guy is such a good chef too, so I feel like he's cooked me some amazing meals too.
So I love you, Tim.
Okay, everybody. So take your phone, selfie, hashtag in your dreams, the double thumbs up. Do whatever you can to support this amazing film. And that's a wrap, everybody. Can we give another round of applause for our amazing guests? And thank you for being an amazing audience. Again, support. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.